Welcome to the Rocky Top Roundtable. I am Austin Price, joined by Eric Kane, Rob Lewis, and Brent Hubbs. It's Texas A&M week, big game 3:30. Tennessee coming off the bye week, so they've had 2 weeks to prepare for an Aggies team that almost beat Alabama for the second straight time in College Station, but came up just a little bit close.
Yeah, really talented Texas A&M team. Didn't play well in the second half, played really well in the first half. Defensively, didn't in the second half. But Rob, there's no questioning the talent, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, that A&M is rolling out with Saturday afternoon in Neyland Stadium.
Yeah, the front seven is super disruptive. They've been super efficient. I mean, Alabama really struggled to run the ball against them. Ended up averaging less than a 1 yard per carry. Now, a lot of that was because of sacks, but even taking that out, Texas A&M pretty much dominated the line of scrimmage with their front seven.
Yeah, I think line of scrimmage is going to be key to this game, both for Tennessee and for Texas A&M, offensively, defensively. More on that Aggies defense. I mean, it is stout from the front all the way to the back, but it's really good at the line of scrimmage on the defensive line. It's good at linebacker. There's opportunity there in the back end. The key of the game, I think, will be can Joe Milton take advantage of that in the secondary for A&M.
Let's talk throwing the ball deep first. I mean, Eric just brought it up. This is going to be a chance for Tennessee, if they can protect well enough, will have the opportunity to take some shots.
One would think, I mean, because one of the things in watching that game on Saturday against Alabama is there was a lot of single safety high look. And so when you do that, you're putting your corners out on the island a good bit. Now, Joey Halsey said on Tuesday that they mix it up quite a bit with what they do. But, man, I saw a lot of man coverage and basically left Alabama with the opportunity to throw some 50-50 balls. The question is, can Tennessee complete things vertically down the field?
Well, and can they protect? Because, Texas A&M, as they played one more game than Tennessee, but they lead the SEC in sacks. They got after Alabama. They got 24 on the year. They got the Milroe a lot, but like you're saying, they paid for it. You know, it was feast or famine, and Milroe hit enough shots against those man-to-man looks, to overcome the struggles they had in protecting the quarterback. And it may be the same story for Tennessee on Saturday. Can Joe Milton hit just enough of those 50-50 balls?
Well, and Joe's, to me, going to have to be able to move around a little bit. The pocket, he's going to have to be able to be, sidestep a defender, move around. I'm not saying you got to run, but at the same time, you can't just stay stagnant.
You got to do something that he's not really done well throughout his career, and that's throw on the run. Again, doesn't mean that you're going to have to take off and have 50 to 60 yards of rushing yards or whatever in this game. But you're going to have to get out of the pocket. You're going to have to step up in the pocket. You're going to have to move around a little bit because that front is coming. More on that Milroe stuff from Alabama in the game before, as Rob was mentioning. I mean, as a Tennessee fan, that should give you some confidence, right? I mean, the stats, Brent, don't look great down the field passing for Milton or Tennessee this year. But if you just kind of say, all right, which one's the better passing quarterback, most everybody's going to take Joe Milton. And so that should give you some confidence moving forward that, hey, you're going to get those one-on-one matchups. Now, can you connect on them?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Tennessee's just not hit him enough. I think for Joe, it's not about rushing yards, positive yards, but it's can he take and avoid 2nd and 14 and make that 2nd and 8 instead. That's going to be the key. I don't know that he's going to run and throw on the run and do all those types of things. He just has to scramble out of trouble, AP, to keep them out of third and super long plays. He's got to avoid that negative.
And you've got to be able to run the ball effective enough to keep them honest.
Yeah, and to do that, you've got to stay committed to the run.
Which is something they didn't do at Florida.
And they didn't do it in the second quarter against South Carolina. They had 88 yards rushing in the first quarter, one carry in the second quarter.
What's the stat, 150 yards?
150 yards is the number. Now the question is, can Tennessee get to that? Because Texas A&M has not given up 150 yards. 144 to Auburn's the most they've given up. Can Tennessee effectively run the football and stay committed to running the football when it feels like you're beating your head against the wall from time to time?
And you mentioned the second quarter at South Carolina, and what was crazy about that is Tennessee had great success in the first quarter. What did they run, 89, 90 yards?
88 yards.
Average, 6-7 yards a pop, and then to have just one carry. And I'm sure there's probably formation, stuff, numbers in the box that I'm not aware of, but still, that was pretty dramatic to see, Josh just seemingly forget about it when it was clicking.
Go ahead, Eric.
I was just going to say this A&M defense, I mean, it went from worst to first. There we go. So far through 6 games. Gave up 208 yards rushing a season ago. So far through 6 games, only 84 yards given up on average this season. So, again, it's going to be a challenge for those front 5 for Tennessee. Who's going to be those front 5, we'll find out. The tight ends and all 3 of the running backs.
Well, and quick point, Texas A&M has been great at generating negative plays in the run game. And if I'm not mistaken, Tennessee had no negative yardage runs last week in South Carolina. That's going to be something to watch this week.
Texas A&M's also been great at chunk plays down the field as far as hitting deep balls. That's probably what Max Johnson's best at. He really, does throw a nice deep ball. Question is what's he like in the short to intermediate range? Because Tennessee's going to likely try to get after him, and if he's having to, draw back and try to throw it, Tennessee's ability to get to the quarterback increases.
Well, and Tennessee's got to eliminate the chunk play themselves. I mean, they've given up. That's been the bugaboo for this defense. It's not been a bunch of chunk plays, but it's been one or two a game, ugly chunk plays. They gave up a 43-yard touchdown pass to UTSA, 75-yard touchdown run to South Carolina, 60-yard run to Florida, 45-yard or 43-yard run to the quarterback against Austin Peay. They've got to avoid that misfit, or that misplay of a ball that ends up in a big play, missed tackle in the open field. Tennessee's got to avoid those things. And you just got to think Texas A&M's going to take shots downfield. That still, to me, is the most baffling thing about the South Carolina games. They never tried to throw it deep on Tennessee the entire night.
I just think they had no confidence in protected Rattler, and I mean, you wonder how Texas A&M is going to be with that. Alabama really got after Johnson and the quarterback, but prior to that on Saturday, Texas A&M had been really good in pass protection. So to me, that's going to be a huge key, as it is every game. But as good as Tennessee was against South Carolina, I know you've talked about it, Brent. It's the most cohesion that we've seen with the pass rush to secondary, and the secondary took advantage of how much pressure they were getting.
Eric, I'm interested to see who matches up with Texas A&M's tight end, Max Johnson's brother. I think that's going to be an interesting, matchup because he's really, Jake is really athletic.
Yep.
So the question is who guards him best for Tennessee?
It's kind of that security blanket as well. To a sense, every tight end
especially when they're brothers, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of like that, years and years and years of throwing together.
Kind of like backyard football. Nothing's there. Let me dump it off. And so I agree completely. Whether it's Aaron Beasley or Elijah Herring, a Tennessee linebacker, whether it's Wesley Walker, if they're lined up on the line, it's going to be imperative for Tyler Barron, for James Pierce, Roman Harrison to get hands on that tight end to slow him down a little bit. But I think that's going to be a big key. You got to watch in the second, third layer of the defense for that tight end because that's somebody that Max Johnson, his brother, he's going to go after.
And can Tennessee's defensive front be effective enough that the little Johnson, younger Johnson, has to stay in and chip or has to stay in and max protect a little bit to help out? That could go a long way to defending the tight end as well if he has to stay more tied into the offensive front to help pass protect because of James Pierce and Tyler Barron off the edge.
All the talk this week of A&M's defensive line, A&M's defensive line, A&M's defensive line. How much do you think that helps Tennessee's defensive line? Because all of a sudden now they're not the ones talked about as much. Do you feel like they can come in with a chip on their shoulder?
Well, I think the bigger chip on Tennessee's defensive line shoulder is every time Rodney Garner references the Florida game and pulls up tape of the Florida game, because they didn't play very well. And Rodney Garner spoke openly about it, how bad of a lesson that was to learn. They certainly used that against South Carolina as their fuel. And I guarantee you Rodney Garner is reminding them of what happens when you don't show up and you don't play at the level you're supposed to play at. I think that's his biggest motivator for this defensive line.
I think so too. And again, it was just kind of a quarter. It was such a bad quarter defensively and defensive line, but that's all it takes, and that's what lost you the game in Florida. A&M's defensive line, looks is similar to what Florida does, at least from what Tennessee's seen so far this year. So it's going to be a challenge, and I like the way that the defensive lineman, Tyler Barron, and some of these other guys, they always reference, Coach Gardner shows us everything we could still be doing. Like, in no way have they arrived. They've done well so far in spots, but they could be doing so much more. And so I do think that could be a chip on your shoulder and say, hey, well, all the talks on the A&M defensive line, what about us in front of the home crowd? Should be a good thing to watch.
It's Tennessee, it's Texas A&M, 3:30 on Saturday. For the guys, I'm Austin Price for the Rocky Top Roundtable.